Police say the suspect entered into this home behind me where the windows, he says, were duct tape. AT&T will block FaceTime to customers who don't have 4G or 3G phones. Some stones were damaged beyond repair, but this one was lucky. Carvers are using this exact stonework to recreate the new stones. You will receive a booster shot of the vaccine every 3 months. Researchers say nearly 3 million new HIV cases are diagnosed each year. Early voting starts in Ohio next week, where the two men will face off in their first presidential debate. In Washington, D.C., Denise Sawyer, Fox News.
For people like myself who are deaf and how we use FaceTime, I think it's a very unique application. So it would be very good if we'd be able to continue to have access to that tool.
Before FaceTime, a deaf or hard of hearing person had to use relay services to make or receive phone calls. Now they just have to push one button and they're connected. But soon that application may no longer be available to some deaf customers. AT&T will block FaceTime to customers who don't have 4G or 3G phones. And advocates say that's a big problem.
If AT&T gets away with this, what happens the next time? What application is going to be blocked next?
John Bergmeyer works for a public interest group that threatens to file a formal complaint with the FCC if AT&T blocks FaceTime.
I get an error message from AT&T that I have to call them if I want to turn the feature on. So AT&T is basically vetoing the use of this feature on my phone.
I contacted AT&T, and while they wouldn't agree to talk on camera, they released a statement saying, "Our policies regarding FaceTime will be fully transparent to all consumers," and no one has argued to the contrary. There is no transparency issue here, nor is there a blocking issue.
But me as a deaf person, I don't have that capability to use the phone, so the options that I have are already very limited.
The advocate groups are hoping to work this out before it reaches the FCC. I'm Denise Sawyer for News Vision. Sean Callahan has a tough task ahead.
And this particular finial that I'm recarving came off the northwest tower.
He's putting together piece by piece broken pieces of the National Cathedral. The attraction in our nation's capital was damaged by a 5.9 earthquake.
When it first happened, it was pretty overwhelming. Just at first, when the earthquake happened, it just took a while to sink in.
That's because tremors in this part of the country are rare.
I'm just copying directly off this one and using it for, I take templates, like this is a side template of the Crockett here, and just transfer it over to what I'm doing here.
Some stones were damaged beyond repair, but this one was lucky. Carvers are using this exact stonework to recreate the new stones.
They just need to be cleaned up a little, and they'll be put back up on the tower. So anything that can be salvaged will be salvaged.
The work isn't a quick fix. It could take more than a decade to finish the $5 million job. And for Callahan, he doesn't mind.
It's satisfying and gratifying to be here and just know that people are invested in what you do.
In Northwest Washington, Denise Sawyer, News 4. Sold for sex at 14 years old.
That's where I was sold from one trafficker pimp to another one.
At the same corner where she was sold nearly 30 years later, Barbara is finally telling her story.
I was a brownie. I was a member of the Barbie fan club.
And she was a sexually abused teen looking for help. That's when she met a couple in DuPont who took her in and groomed her for the sex trade.
After everything happened, he took my money and he did what he did. Get out of the car and turn around and don't look at me. And I didn't look at him, but I thought he had a gun. I thought he was going to shoot me.
She says she's lucky to be alive today. Police say pimps stake out metro stops like the one behind me, looking for their next victim to sell into the sex trade.
The pimp zeroes in onto that vulnerability.
James Bold is pushing legislation in Virginia where he says,
in 2008, the FBI released a report that identified Northern Virginia as one of 14 hotspots for child sex trafficking.
Federal agents are investigating recent sex trade activities.
It can happen in the most rural places in the state. It can happen in the most suburban areas in the state.
1 mile away from Barbara's home in Fairfax, Virginia.
If you can't go back home, find somewhere else to go. Don't go back to your traffic.
Reporting from Washington, D.C., I'm Denise Sawyer. This man was paid by celebrity chef Golf Tracy to flip, twirl, and wave a sign that tells you to slow down. Tracy was hit hard with fines over $400, and he's giving drivers a heads up. And if the curbside show won't get you to drive the speed limit, the words "new speed camera and 500 feet" will.
No longer speed, especially on Foxhall.
U.S. Airways is spreading swings in our nation's capital. The Tempe-based carrier says it's adding more flights at Washington's Reagan National Airport this year. And there you have it. Before we leave you tonight, reporting from Washington, D.C., reporting from the Tidal Basin, reporting from Phoenix, Arizona, reporting from Miami, Florida, I'm Denise Sawyer.